So you're thinking about going to the Philippines, but you don't know where to go or what boat tours to do. Well, look no further, because in this video, we're gonna be going over our top 5 best boat tours in the Philippines. So if you didn't know, the Philippines is made up of thousands and thousands of tiny little islands. So if you do end up going to the Philippines, you most likely will be getting on a boat at some point in your travels. Starting it out at number 5. This one is taking us to Palawan, and we are going to El Nido. So there's 4 main tours you can do while you're in El Nido. They're named A, B, C, or D. We chose Tour A simply because the guy who we bought the tour from basically told us that Tour A is the most beautiful. So the tour overall was reasonably priced. It was about 25 USD per person, I believe, but that included lunch. Besides the food being a little bit subpar, this one was so busy just because you're in, obviously, El Nido, which is probably the busiest place in all of the Philippines to check out. In the morning, waiting for our boat to pick us up, the amount of people on the beach was insane. But yeah, Tour A was the busiest, so keep that in mind when you're doing this tour. If you're on Tour A, you're doing it for one reason, and that is the Big Lagoon. Pulling up to this thing was mind-blowing. So you get to actually rent a kayak for about, I think it was 5 USD per person. So me and Anik, cruised through the lagoon, and it was so freaking beautiful, like so amazing. Some of the clearest waters I think I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, Tour A was amazing. The only thing I have to say was the food wasn't that great, but besides that, El Nido's boat tour was great. So check this out. So number 4 now takes us to Port Barton, which is in Palawan as well. Some people actually consider it to be El Nido's little cousin. It's a super beautiful, peaceful place unless you're staying at Coco Rico Hostel. It's definitely a party hostel. So obviously if you're staying at a party hostel, you have to do the booze cruise that comes with the hostel. So that's what we decided to do. I think it was about 30 USD, but yeah, it included all the food and all the drinks, which was a little bit dangerous, but it was so much fun. So this boat tour takes you to about 4 different locations. My favorite location was actually just a big sandbar, literally right in the middle of the ocean. When we pulled up to it, there was nothing else around it at all, just this big mound of kind of sand in the middle of the ocean. So we all got off. I think it was actually called Jellyfish Island. Starfish Island, not jellyfish, starfish. So yeah, some of the drone shots here were absolutely amazing. So Coco Rico was so full at the time that I think there was about 40 of us that did the cruise. So they actually had to get another boat for all of us to be able to join. So yeah, there was actually 2 full boats of people who were all, drinking and having a good time. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. So if you're ever in Port Barton and you like to have a bit of a party, I mean, in my opinion, there's nothing better than a booze cruise, especially in the Philippines when it's all unlimited. They have on there rum, whiskey, gin, beer. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Even if you're not a drinker, this is still an absolutely beautiful place to do a cruise. So yeah, definitely check that out if you're there. So here's a little replay of actually what it looked like.
Have a day off in Port Barton!
So jumping into number 3 now, we're going to the east coast of the Philippines to a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful island called Siargao. And if you've never heard of Siargao before, you're welcome, because Siargao is truly, I think it's probably my favorite island in the whole world. There's so much to do in Siargao, and one of our favorite things to do was the boat trip. I believe it was called the 3-island boat trip. Obviously, they're taking us to 3 different islands. So this tour, in my opinion, was definitely one of the best ones. Honestly, everything was perfect about this tour, besides the fact that the boat that we got onto, the engine of this thing was like the loudest engine I think I've ever heard in my life. So if you were sat right at the back of the boat, you had to cover your ears or you literally felt like you were going deaf because it was so loud. I don't even know how the guy driving was doing it. He just looked completely normal. He didn't have any earplugs in. I was amazed. It also didn't help that Anik and my sister were a little bit hungover from the night before. So yeah, it didn't really help their day at all having that boat so loud. It was truly piercing. It didn't ruin the trip, but it was definitely a huge downfall of the boat trip. But yeah, you want to make sure that the company you book, you know, the boat is quite nice and hopefully the engine isn't as loud as ours. And the food was great. We got to, I think it was the third island. There was like 3 of them carrying this massive table, almost as big as this one, and it was just full of food, like shrimps and fruit and rice and pork, and it was all chopped up so beautifully, and they just slapped it right in front of us. It was awesome. So yeah, if you're ever in Siargao, make sure to check this out. So jumping into number 2 now, we're going back to Palawan, of course, and we're going to the town called Coron. So the town itself isn't actually on the island of Coron. It's actually situated on another island called Busuanga. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But yeah, it's a much bigger island. It's a lot flatter. So that's where the town of Coron is built. Yeah, so anyways, Coron is the closest thing to heaven I think I might have ever seen. The waters are crystal clear. And yeah, again, these limestone islands are nuts. The food on this tour was amazing. I remember they sent us to go, swimming, snorkeling. We went, did something cool, and we got back on the boat, and I mean, they had to have pre-made the food because there's no way they cooked it all that fast. But again, this table was just, it was like a big buffet. On this tour, they take you to a place called the Twin Lagoon, which was probably one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen in my life. But yeah, I just remember floating in this Twin Lagoon with Anik and my sister, just thinking, I don't think there's anything more beautiful than this. But again, keep in mind, because of Coron's popularity, it was a bit busier than the other tours. Maybe not as busy as El Nido, but still there was a lot of people around. So definitely, if you are in Coron or in this area, El Nido, make sure to check out the Coron boat trip because my goodness, it was so amazing. Check this out. And finally, our number 1 best boat tour in the Philippines is the Tao Expedition. This is a pretty famous boat tour in the Philippines. So this one's gonna be taking you from El Nido to Coron or Coron to El Nido. And I wouldn't really call it a boat tour anymore. This is more of a boat expedition. We had heard a lot of good things about the Tao Expedition, so we definitely wanted to check it out for ourselves. Literally from the minute we arrived at the little office the night before for a briefing of the whole trip, they immediately greeted us with coffee, tea. Everyone was so friendly. So we kind of had a very good vibe about how this was going to be ran. The service of this whole boat expedition was spot on. They really make sure that like you have a very good time on this boat. So because the company actually purchased land on a bunch of random little islands between El Nido and Coron, they've obviously been allowed to build their own bungalows there. So that's where we actually slept, which was crazy. So we slept on all these remote islands that no other tourists can actually go to because it's just the Tao Expedition that takes you there.
She has arisen. Look, good morning.
So yeah, you're not gonna be sleeping in a 5-star hotel on these islands. It's literally just a bungalow with like a little mattress and a mosquito net. So it's not the most comfy experience sleeping wise, but just the whole experience. You're on these random, secluded, tiny little islands, most crystal clear waters, and you're with 25 people who soon become basically family to you. It's such a unique experience, and I'll probably be doing it again in the near future. The cost of this one was the one downfall for the Tao Expedition, but for good reason. I believe the price was around $700 USD for 5 days and 4 nights, which sounds steep, especially if you're on a budget traveling for 4 or 5 months. But if I was back there right now, I would pay that and more to do that boat trip again, because it was truly one of the best things I think I've ever done in my life. Besides the amazing scenery and the beautiful beaches and the amazing guides taking you along this expedition, the one thing that stood out more than anything on this tour was the food. They have some of the best chefs, I swear, in the Philippines, cooking you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it is so fresh. The meals were mainly seafood, which usually I don't like seafood, but because of how fresh it was, I enjoyed it thoroughly. It was all fresh caught frit. It was all fresh caught fish. It was all fresh caught fish. And all the veggies they had were actually from their farm at one of the camps, and they grew it all themselves. So everything that you ate was just so fresh. I would go back and do this whole thing just for the food. I've actually already made a video of the whole trip, so if you're ever coming to the Philippines and you're thinking about doing the Tao Expedition, make sure to give this video a watch, because this trip will literally change your life. I've made a little recap of the Tao Expedition, so check this out. So there you have it, our 5 favorite boat tours in the Philippines. If I didn't mention your boat tour, make sure to leave it in the comments, because I'm gonna be heading back to the Philippines soon, and I definitely wanna know about other boat tours that I can do, because there's nothing better than a boat tour. And if you've never been to the Philippines before, make sure you go, because yeah, like I said before, it's one of my favorite countries, if not my favorite country. So go check it out. You will not regret it.
When I sing and I want it that way, tell me why.
Ain't nothing but a heartache. Tell me why. Ain't nothing but a mistake.